Okay, Ralph G. Rumsey, and I was in World War II from 12/2/42 until 1/13/46. Let's see, I grew up in Venetton and went to school in Venetton. Didn't quite finish high school, but went to work. When I got drafted, I was sent to Fort Niagara, and we was up to Fort Niagara for a month or so, and all of us that was drafted had asked to go in the Air Corps. They put us over in a separate barracks from the rest. So we all felt lucky, like we was going to make it where we wanted to go in the Air Force. Well, we was there about 2 weeks, I believe, in Fort Niagara, and one morning they said load up. They put us on a train and we was off. Of course, in them days they never told you where you was going or when or why. And so we ended up in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and found out they was starting a new armor division, which is the 14th Armor Division. And so we took our basic training in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And of course, they always ask you what you want to do there. You want to drive a tank, or you want to be in the infantry, or what? And I said, no, I'd like to get into being a messenger so I could ride motorcycle, because I like to ride sickles. I had sickles myself. And so they put me in as a messenger and a liaison. And I was in the 94th Cavalry in Squadron Headquarters. Well, we was there for quite a while, and I forget where we went to. We went to a couple more camps, and we maneuvered in Tennessee, I believe it was. And then later we was sent to Camp Shanks, New York, and that's where we shipped out of to go to Germany. And we went to Germany. We traveled over on a ship they called the U.S. James Parker. We landed in Marseille, France, and then we went right up the Rhone Valley into action up there. And well, I was a messenger, and my job every morning was at midnight. I'd be back at headquarters, and they'd give me the orders, and I had to take them to the front lines, to the fellows up in the in the cavalry and the recon up there to see what was going on. And I done that all the time I was over there, practically. We traveled around quite a lot of places over there in towns, but there were so many of them, and you traveled, seemed so fast that you didn't get time to remember or write down everything you done. You just went from day to day and hope you made the next day. And I don't know what else to tell you that happened over there. We had an awful lot of ups and a lot of downs, but that was war at that time. Well, I was back at Squadron Headquarters, which is a reserve, combat reserve, and that was made up of tanks and infantry and artillery, and it was like a reserve in case our forward elements didn't work out right. And when midnight come, it's my job to take the orders up front. Well, come midnight, there was no changes on the front that night, and they wanted to move the reserve command up to the front lines. So they said, well, you sleep in tonight. And boy, that was tickled me, because you didn't get to sleep in much. And so I slept all night, and then the next morning we had to lead up to command. We led them all the way up to, I don't remember the little place we left them off, but anyhow, it was back on a dirt road somewhere. And when I had to deliver the orders, well, I had to have a commanded commissioned officer with me. So Lieutenant James can't remember his name, but I got it wrote down someplace, was with me, and I said to him, I says, we had an old trailer that we hauled from headquarters to headquarters behind the Jeep because we kept all of our clothes and extras in there. So I said, let's just we get these orders, we got to go up to the front lines, and let's drive them up there, take them up before all these tanks and guns and so forth get blocked and take us all day to get there. So he says, okay, and so we took off and started up there. I don't even remember, but I would imagine it was between 2 and 5 miles we had to go. Well, on the way up there was a dirt road, and there's like a lot of banks and stuff along the road. You couldn't see very good. So we come around this corner going up there, and we was going around this corner in this dirt road. We ran into a column of Panzer tanks, all loaded with infantry. So immediately they opened up on us, and we was very fortunate to get out of there, because my two buddies right behind me was driving a gas truck, and they had the same idea, and they both got shot that day. And well, even before we got up there, I lost another one. We had, like Army buddies, there's 4 or 5 you'd always stuck together, you know, and done things on weekends if you got off a day or something. And the other fellow was Kenny Hawkins. On our travel, while I was leading him up that day, a machine gun went off in the column and shot him right in the head, so that was in the Kenny. And we was so lucky not to get machine gun, because I shot the Jeep we was up in so bad that our fellows in the outfit come look all around in the fields up there, because I was sure we didn't survive. Well, the prisoner story from then on was we did a lot of traveling by walking and a lot of traveling by German vehicles, and but we had all the orders for that change, the whole front lines. We had the orders that morning. Good thing there wasn't any changes. And so they got us back to headquarters, German headquarters, as quick as possible, because they wanted them papers, you know. Well, they got us back there, and then they couldn't decipher everything in them, so James Lowman, that was with me, they separated him from me, and so they could interview both of us, because they knew one wouldn't tell anything that the other wouldn't tell. And we'd done that for a few days, and they kept taking us from one headquarters, German headquarters, to the next one. And I guess they didn't like us very good, and of course we couldn't or didn't or wouldn't tell what was in the orders. However, we was fortunate that they told us back at headquarters when we got back there, that at our headquarters, that there was no changes in the orders for that day, so they didn't gain anything by it. So he was lucky there. I don't know what else to tell you on that. There was about 5 or 6 of us prisoners that was captured right there. And I don't know, well, I think there was a couple more that was shot there too, but they didn't travel with us. And they kept moving us back from one headquarters to another, trying to, seen more German generals and you name it, they had them. And we slept in the barns at night, and they had guards over us at night, and we slept in the barns. And our meal usually was, they had to stop when they was marching us back. We marched most of the way by foot, but they would stop to Burgermaster in some little town we was going through, and if we was lucky, he'd give us a potato to eat. So we done pretty good. We had to, I think it was 5 guards with us, and most of them couldn't speak any English, but we had one guy who was with us, a German soldier that could speak English because he'd competed in the Olympics. And we were so dirty, and we kept asking him, we'd be walking by a creek or something, you know, and we asked him why we couldn't stop there for a minute and jump in and wash off a little. Well, the ones that couldn't speak English wouldn't even talk about it or couldn't talk about it. But he finally gave in. If we promised him we'd get in and get right back out so he wouldn't get caught. Because they were rough on them too, you know. And so that was about it. And then they kept marching us back until we got back to Stalag 7-3 prison camp. Well, I looked it up the other day, and it was up near Lower Germany. That's where we was captured, I guess, according to what I could find. And I wasn't, well, I guess it was a ways out of Moosburg, but I don't know how far, because most of it we walked, and some of it they would put us in command vehicles and to get us from one headquarters to the other as quick as they could. And most of the German soldiers that we was with, or they was over us, most of them was human, you know, they pretty human. The headquarters was rougher than the guards taking us back. It wasn't much in there. You just stayed there, sat there. I remember, all I can remember is little things that happened, but I remember one morning I got a boiled egg they gave me for breakfast. Boy, that was something. And I dropped it in the dirt out there. Well, I wasn't going to give up that boiled egg, so there was a water faucet out there. I took it out there and washed it all off, did it anyhow. But the worst thing I think in the prison camp, the worst for me, was they had a big tent set up there. I don't know how many guys slept in it, probably 50 or 100, but it was a long tent, and it was open on the sides about that high, and then it sloped up, and they're pretty long. And all that was on the ground was straw. You slept in straw. And when you went to bed in there, your feet was going to touch the other guy's head, and his head's going to touch the other guy's feet. That's how he was packed in there. And there's a walkway down the center between the two sides, and that's where the guards walked. But the worst part was the doggone bugs. There were so many bugs. You get up in the morning, first thing I would do is I could get to the water fountain. I took all my clothes off and washed them out under the water fountain, because there was many, it was all right. You get the bugs out of your clothes pretty well during the daytime, you know, once you washed them under that cold water. But then, as soon as you went and laid down that straw, you was right back in them, and they would eat on you all night. That was the worst part of it. I think they could shot me to have been easier. And well, that went on while we was there, and yeah, I remember exactly how I got out. I was when we was put in there, they separated my partner, James Lowman. They separated him from me because he was a commissioned officer, and they put him in the stockade right next to me. well, we could commute there, but it was like a fence between us. So then to the day that Patton come through there and liberated us, he came out and Jimmy says, I called him Jimmy, his name was Lieutenant Lowman, if I want to make it official. Somehow he got out of his pen over there, they had him in, and he ran over and he says, come on, Ralph, he said, let's go. So there's Patton on his tank in the gateway coming in, see. Well, Jimmy and I still had our GI clothes, so we took right off, went right beside Patton's tank and out the gate. Oh yeah, I walked right by him, he was up on the tank making his little entrance speech, you know. Oh yeah, I don't know, he was a well, I better not say that, but he was talking, you know, to all the, well, 30,000 GIs in there. Of course, they wasn't all right there, but I don't know what he said because we got out of there as quick as we could. It was our 14th Armored Division that really liberated the camp. Patton was over it then, but so we got connected with somebody we knew there in the Army, and they took us back to wherever we were stationed there, the camp was. And that worked out all right. We got away that night all right. But then the next morning, one of the officers down in our outfit come up and they said, well, you two guys got to go back to prison. You know your AWOL. So we had to go back and spend one night back in the prison. And then they flew us out. We couldn't go back into fighting anymore because if you're a prisoner in that area, there's something about the rules of the Army that you can't go back in the same area and fight anymore. Anyhow, I wound up in one night in Paris. How I wound up there, why, I'm not quite sure. Everything happened so fast at that time. Well, it turned out that the night I was in Paris, they flew me up there and dropped me off and took me down to some building. They said, you sleep in there and you go to such and such a place to get your supper. Well, that's good telling me to go to such and such a place in France. I couldn't speak a word of French. But I was lucky again. There was a GI that was stationed there in France, in Paris. And I got talking to him and he said, well, I got to go there to eat too. So he says, why don't you join me and get down? So we went down, and when we was down there, they was announced someplace that the war was over. So the lights was going to come on all over Paris that night. So he says, let's take a walk up on this hill to this cathedral, which we did. He knew where he was going because he was stationed there. I didn't know, up from down there. So we went up there and we saw the lights all come on over Paris. And then when we returned home, we came back on a Liberty ship. I don't remember any name to that. But I can remember when we came home, we was in a camp over on the west coast of France. And they told us that when we was getting ready to ship back, they says, well, we got more than we can get on the boats. So he says, any of you guys that want to sleep on deck, load up. Well, everybody loaded up. There wasn't nobody left. So everybody, they took their chances. Well, there was only 5 of us that really was close. And there was only one was from, he was kind of an old stalemate or standby. His name was Phil Miller. He was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And they just got him in the draft at that time, and I think that was 38. And he'd never been married, and he had two girlfriends. One lived in Pittsburgh, one lived in New York City, and they was both school teachers. But he never got married until after we got out the war. And he always worried about his mother, who was he still lived with in Pittsburgh when he got drafted. And he was the guy that, of our group when he was in the Army there, if somebody got an emergency call, they had to go home, somebody died or was real sick and didn't have no money, he was the one that always went around to the other GIs and took up a collection to get them enough to go home on. And then, of course, Kenny Hawkins got killed that day, and two of the other boys got shot the day I got captured. Oh, and the first one, Elton Apthorpe, he really didn't, when he was in training and around, he was one of our buddies too, but he was an alcoholic. And on payday, he would leave as soon as he got paid, and you wouldn't see him till his money was gone. But we had a good first sergeant, Sergeant Holt, and he'd always put him doing dishes or back digging foxholes or something, because he understood, you know. And we had great companions. He was all good guys and worked hard and fought hard. Veterans Day, well, I guess it's just kind of a holiday celebrating the death of all the prisoners, or not prisoners, but all the soldiers. I don't know what else. It's a great thing. It's well, most all of the things that connected with World War II is because I don't relate much to the Korean War or the other wars. You know, it's everything to me is World War II, which is natural, I guess. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. The only thing that's bothered me since World War II, see, after getting bit with all them bugs and spiders and that stuff, I fought that ever since I've been out. And of course they take care of me at the VA, but that don't stop it. You know, I never really felt scared. I guess it was due to being young. I don't know what else, because whatever we done, I was there and I would done it, and I've crawled through many shellings, but it didn't seem to, I suppose you was and didn't even realize it, maybe. I don't know. Well, I don't like to say much about it, but I think you see a load of GIs piled in the back of a truck like cordwood. And I think that's about the sickest. Because I don't know, you see somebody shot on the ground, you didn't think so much of, but just see them thrown into a